There are only two possibilities in the Bob Lazar case. Either Bob fabricated one of the most elaborate scientific hoaxes in all of modern history, or he encountered a secret so destabilizing, so dangerous, that the safest way to deal with him was not to silence him, but to erase him. Because Bob Lazar wasn't just claiming that the United States was hiding technology. His testimony stated something far more disruptive. That whatever this technology was, it wasn't built by human hands. The following briefing is not based on belief. Most of you watching or listening already have an opinion on Bob Lazar, and that's acceptable. This briefing is about evidence, about inconsistencies, about patterns, and about why this story refuses to disappear. This case file, consider it open and ongoing.
In 1988, reporter George Knapp of Las Vegas CBS television station KLAS began investigating the U.S. government's involvement with UFOs. He says he's found evidence proving a massive cover-up that began in 1947 and continues to this day.
Bob Lazar claims our government captured alien spaceships, UFOs, and keeps them in a secret warehouse.
They are actively and have in their possession alien spacecraft, and they are actively undergoing analysis.
The distance doesn't matter anymore. If they have a different propulsion system, a million years ahead of us and teeming with suns. Just look up at the stars. Every star is a sun with orbiting planets probably in the Goldilocks zone. If there's life out there, because we ain't that special, are they coming here?
The interview had been set up at the last minute. Dennis, whose real name is Bob Lazar, met our news unit in front of the home of John Lear, put on a microphone, then sent shockwaves through UFO circles. Lazar recalls what was going through his mind at the time.
It was a very frightening moment.
What are you talking about? Spill the beans, Bob.
Project Galileo, Project Sidekick was supposed to be weapon applications of the craft. Project Looking Glass had to do with time, any effects of time.
How are you informed in this?
These, again, were just the small briefings that I read. Yeah. Gravity affects time, space-time. Yes. I'm sure you've heard of that. You are seeing through a gravity distortion field.
Our government has flat out lied to us for 40 years or more. They've threatened people and intimidated people. They've spied on UFO groups, infiltrated UFO groups, spied on researchers, compiled dossiers. Their response is bordered on paranoia.
The objective of this briefing is simple. Establish what can be verified, identify what cannot. Sift through the noise and pull out the signal to determine once and for all whether Bob Lazar represents misinformation or an exposure to the truth. This case may extend across multiple briefings. The scope is simply too large for a single report. So with that being said, take notes, save your questions for the end, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Let's begin. Bob Lazar was never meant to become a public figure. He wasn't charismatic, he wasn't political, he didn't present as the normal whistleblower. What he was an engineer. Lazar's mind, driven by curiosity and pattern recognition. Therefore, he had a tendency to push systems beyond their intended limits. From a young age, Lazar demonstrated a consistent behavioral trait. He would dismantle systems to understand them. But he continued to test boundaries others simply wouldn't. And therefore, he ignored authority when the physics didn't align. This kind of thinking is typically praised, until, that is, that it begins pointing in the wrong direction. Bob Lazar didn't become a significant name or personality because of what he built. He would ultimately become significant because of the person who took notice of him. In 1982, Bob Lazar built a jet-powered Honda Civic. not as a publicity stunt, not for fame or recognition, but as a proof of concept. The project would inevitably draw media attention, as the area of Los Alamos was littered with some of the brightest minds in the last century. This jet would land Lazar on the front page of the Los Alamos Monitor. The jet he created would set Lazar on course for one of the most incredible journeys of all time. The article identified him as a physicist at Los Alamos National Laboratory. That article still exists. It can still be found. And it's a crucial piece of the evidence in Lazar's background. One of the people who noticed this article happened to be giving a lecture in the area. And as he was reading the very news article featuring Lazar, Bob just so happened to be walking by. He introduced himself as the subject of the article. This man? It was Ed Teller. Edward Teller was not your average physicist or scientist for that fact. He was the architect of the hydrogen bomb. Teller was a senior figure in black budget research, a man with influence over highly compartmentalized programs, the world of the military-industrial complex, most famous for Project Manhattan. According to Bob Lazar and journalist George Knapp, Teller didn't focus on the car. He was more interested in the mind that assembled it. A conversation followed. No explanations, no promises, just a cordial exchange. And that was just enough. It piqued Ed's interest. And in classified environments, interest? Well, that's just how doors tend to open. Lazar had found himself in exactly the right place at the right time, and he was the right mind. When the call finally came, it wasn't an invitation per se. It was an evaluation. Bob Lazar was not contacted by the government directly. He was contacted by a defense contractor that was later identified as EG&G, a company known for staffing the most sensitive and restricted facilities in the Nevada desert and the country at large. What followed was not a job interview. It was an extremely intricate vetting process, from psychological evaluation to full medical screening, several rounds of polygraphs. It's the deepest type of background investigation that you can get. This was not about intelligence alone. It was specifically designed to test one's stress tolerance, their compliance, and most importantly, their discretion. Bob Lazar, he passed. Bob Lazar believed that he was being taken to another test facility. He was being taken somewhere that officially did not exist. Not publicly, at least. Lazar reports being flown to Groom Lake. The infamous Janet flights would take them into Area 51, where then they were ushered into a passenger bus and then driven further south. Lazar became confused, but kept his wits. As they headed beyond charted facilities towards the restricted site near Papoose Lake, the facility known as S4, a sectioned out base built into the lake bed to lie in plain sight, disguised and hidden underground. According to Lazar, there was no signage, there was no insignia. There were hangar doors disguised as stone, and behind those doors was something that even he could not contextualize. And this is with his knowledge of conventional engineering. Behind the first hangar door was something impossible, and it wasn't alone. Lazar claims that he observed at least 9 distinct craft, not prototypes, not variations, but a collection, each different, non-standard. However, Lazar was not granted access to all of them. He was assigned to a single unit. Compartmentalization was strict, even within the program. Knowledge was treated as a liability of sorts. The craft Lazar worked on was approximately 40 feet in diameter. Smooth, seamless, no visible rivets, no weld lines. Lazar described it as not manufactured in the way that humans would say, but finished, perfect. At the center was a compact reactor that redefined propulsion. This craft did not fly the way human aircraft flew. It fell. Lazar stated that the reactor was powered by an unknown material he called Element 115. At the time of this claim, the element did not officially exist. Lazar alleged it generated antimatter, and it interacted and produced controllable gravity fields. The craft did not push against the air, it distorted the very space-time around it.
The reactor here, powering the gravity amplifiers. Gravity amplifiers output goes into the gravity emitters at the bottom, and the resulting gravity beam or anti-gravity wave can be pretty much put anywhere you want to. And I had access and was permitted to view and look at the operation of this main level with the gravity amplifiers and the level below the gravity emitters. And people call these large black rectangular areas on the top portholes. I believe they were some planar sensor array that just took in information from the surrounding area, whether it be patterns of stars or what have you.
Decades later, element 115 would be synthesized and added to the periodic table. While it was unstable, it was very real. When Lazar named element 115, science had not yet caught up. Lazar claims he was given classified reading materials. The documents referred and referenced long-term extraterrestrial contact and origins linked to the star system Zeta Reticuli. Lazar later stated the documents felt inconsistent, part factual, part misleading, which introduces a disturbing possibility that even inside the program, no one has the full truth. The hand scanner Lazar described that used biometrics to verify clearance to facilities. At the time, it sounded fictional, like something out of Star Trek. Years later, the technology became identified and confirmed to be used at classified installations. Now, this doesn't directly confirm alien craft, but it does confirm that his access to secure environments. Fear. Lazar claims he began to feel monitored, assessed, replaceable. He concluded something critical. You don't leave programs like this because you resign. You leave when you cease to be useful. Lazar believed that he would not be permitted to leave alive knowing what he knew. The desert witness, Lazar, made a decision. He brought others to observe test flights near Groom Lake, including a man named John Lear, a pilot with intelligence connections and a good friend of Lazar's. And on scheduled nights, when they were out in the desert, lights would appear in the sky, silent, angular, non-conventional. And years later, those flight windows were corroborated. At the time, Lazar crossed a big boundary. Lazar did not go public to gain fame. He went public to create insurance. He contacted veteran journalist George Knapp, first anonymously, then on the record. After that, his life, destabilized. Lazar's academic records begin to vanish. Every time George would look into it, MIT denied him, Caltech denied him, Los Alamos denied him. Later, Los Alamos contractor records did resurface, specifically a phone book that showed Lazar was in the actual directory. Not erased, but blurred. It was then that Lazar's personal life began to be the ammunition. Legal issues, media ridicule, character attacks. And this follows a known intelligence playbook. You don't disprove the claim. You discredit the messenger. In 2019, Lazar would reemerge on the Joe Rogan Experience. After more than 30 years, his account remained unchanged. No major revisions, no contradictions. Whether it was true or false, it was a cultural moment, and consistency mattered.
Believe it or not, I'm not into UFOs. I don't follow stories or,
Even after your experiences?
No, I'm fascinated with the technology, and it irks me like every night I go to sleep that, that it was my own doing, essentially, that prevented me from continuing on in the project. I mean, it's that to be on that cutting edge of technology is so alluring to me.
Right.
By the same token, I don't really care that there's aliens or where they come from. I mean, the prize is the technology, and that's what I'm fascinated by. But George Knapp is, he's the guy that thread everything together. And what he recently told me is he found the existence of this project, the project that I was on.
Bob Lazar never produced physical proof. He never recanted. He was at Los Alamos, and he demonstrated intimate knowledge of the building's layout and the people inside. He never meaningfully profited. He, like anyone, has made mistakes. But this shouldn't and does not discredit every single thing the man has ever said, which leaves us with only one question that matters. If Bob Lazar was lying, why was he treated like a threat? Governments and militaries, they just don't erase nobodies. They erase anything that threatens the narrative. If you need further evidence, see MLK, JFK, Malcolm X. Bob Lazar may not be a hero. He may not be a whistleblower. He may not be exactly spot on right. But if he's telling the truth, then the greatest secret in human history is being held hostage by the military-industrial complex. It's right there for the grabbing, and it's much more than we can possibly conceive. This briefing has concluded. You have now been sworn to secrecy. What you learned today is of the utmost importance to the Total Disclosure channel. Like this video and subscribe to stay updated on all briefings going forward. Become an asset and join our YouTube member community. You'll gain clearance to early ad-free versions of all podcast episodes and videos, as well as bonus content. It's pick your price and pay what you think the show is worth to you. All assets get the same. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining me for the inaugural episode of the new series on TDP, The Briefing, which will debut every week, touching on a new story or a new case file. This will debut along with a weekly podcast as we continue to push the studio harder and harder. Leave your thoughts in the comments below and let me know if you believe Lazar's story. Or is there simply too much mud in the water? Could it have been designed like that? Until next time, stay humble, stay kind, and stay vigilant.